Good afternoon, Packers fans. Aaron Nagler here with your Packers Daily Chat, coming to you live on the Cheesehead TV social channels. Hope you're having a decent Monday, as much as that's possible after the embarrassment the Green Bay Packers put you through yesterday and into today if you're online and watching highlights and clips and hearing quotes and generally just marinating in the ridiculousness that was the Green Bay Packers losing to the Carolina Panthers 16-13 at Lambeau Field. Remember when Lambeau Field was a fortress and teams worried and feared about coming into Lambeau and playing the Green Bay Packers? Those days are long gone. Carolina Panthers marched into Lambeau, determined, confident, and proceeded to outplay, outhit, outcoach the Green Bay Packers. It was an embarrassment. And that old adage of it's never as bad as it looks or feels when you go back and you watch the tape. No, yeah, it was just about that bad. Real gut check time for Matt LaFleur, for Jeff Hafley, for all the players, everybody associated with the game of football inside 1265 Lombardi. Real gut check time. And I know tomorrow being the trade deadline, there will be lots of questions about will they, won't they, who are they going to look at, etc. I'll be very, very surprised if the Packers make any kind of significant move at the trade deadline. Certainly the big swing with Micah Parsons at the start of the season was, a statement from Brian Gutekunst and the personnel group that, yes, we feel this is the time to make a big swing and add a significant piece, which, by the way, was pretty non-existent and almost invisible yesterday against the Panthers. Now, I do think a large part of that is how the Panthers played them, and Parsons in particular. But after a 3-sack game and a game in Pittsburgh where he was absolutely a monster part of a victory, it was very, very disheartening to see a week later how completely erased from the game he became. And again, I do think a large part of that is how the Panthers were able to run the ball, stay ahead of the sticks. It's not like they threw the ball all over the yard. Hell, Young had 100 yards, still won the game. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous that they were able to come in, they being the Panthers, and dictate terms to the Green Bay Packers and seemingly not have any kind of response, either offensively or defensively, from LaFleur, Hafley, and company. So we'll spend the week talking about what a pathetic performance that was, and then turn our eyes to a humongous matchup with the Philadelphia Eagles a week from tonight on Monday Night Football. A game where I know there are going to be lots of Packers fans talking about, oh, the Eagles are going to come in here and embarrass us and wipe us off the map, etc., blah, blah, blah. I don't expect that. I actually expect the Packers to look 100 times better against the Eagles. Certainly, you cannot look past the loss of Tucker Kraft, which was confirmed earlier today. He has torn his ACL, and he is out for the remainder of the season. Doesn't make anything any easier. But I do think LaFleur and company will find a way to operate on offense without Kraft, and they will look probably exponentially better against the Eagles than they looked yesterday against the Panthers. But that makes the Panthers game all the more frustrating because it reinforces this kind of perception that LaFleur and company play down to their competition or they look past the inferior teams on their schedule. And I don't think the Panthers are a bad football team. I think they, aren't as well known or recognized as some of the other teams in the league because they are at the start of a new-ish program, new head coach, etc. But they played really good, sound, fundamental football on both sides of the ball yesterday in a way we haven't seen the Packers do since week 2. That is a team that came in and executed at the highest level on a consistent basis. Something we have yet to see from the Green Bay Packers from week 3 on. And that is a bit of an indictment on LaFleur and his staff. I get, you can only do so much and the players have to execute. But at some point, if guys are making repeated mistakes and you're repeatedly shooting yourself in the foot, both on offense or defense, it's time to make some changes. And we saw the start of that last week in Pittsburgh when Carrington Valentine got the nod in front of Nate Hobbs. Certainly may be that time now on offense. Maybe stop some rotations across the offensive line. Maybe guys putting the ball on the ground do not get to see the field again. It is a results-based business, and the results have been maddeningly inconsistent. And finally, I do want to, before I get to your questions and comments, I do want to say a quick word about Jordan Love, who, without question, had a very rough moment yesterday on that 4th and 8, and had an even rougher moment when he threw the interception. But those are 2 plays out of the entirety of the football game where I thought he did a very good job taking what was given and taking what was called, and doing a good job at the line of scrimmage as far as, okay, if they're loading the box and they know we're trying to run the ball, I'm going to try and get to my run solutions on the outside. Now, the defense did a very good job of handling those run solutions, but as far as what he's being asked to do, for the most part, yes, outside of 2 rough moments, I thought Jordan played well. No one wants to talk about that, of course, because all we're going to hear about is the big moments where, he absolutely predetermines the interception, something he cannot do. And the 4th and 8 is very unfortunate, throwing him way across his body all the way to the other side of the field. Not a great look, but it is 4th and 8, and he's got to make something happen, or at least try to, which is what he's essentially doing there. I know the Jordan Love haters will be out in force this week, which is fine. Let them bark. I got to pay attention, but you don't have to look much further than the 4th down where he orchestrates things at the line of scrimmage to get Chris Brooks free and wide open for a conversion to know what he does at the position is at a very high level. Yes, there are some boneheaded moments throughout any quarterback's career. Certainly a couple on display yesterday for Jordan, but that doesn't detract or diminish what he does on a down-to-down basis as the Packers quarterback. And I know, like I said, the haters are going to hate, and that's fine. That's all good. This probably just isn't the channel for them, so I won't have to deal with it. Hope you're all doing well. Good to see everybody chiming in. Lots of comments already. Good to see you all. Let's get to your questions and comments. But first, of course, we got to give a shout out to our friends over at ThedaCare. ThedaCare is a proud sponsor of Cheesehead TV. They say defense wins championships. In life, ThedaCare is your first line of defense against illness and injury. Stay strong, stay healthy, stay in the game with a proud sponsor of Cheesehead TV, ThedaCare. Do it, folks. All right, what's going on? How we doing? Hit me. Ed, starting us off. Have you offered to stand next to Matt LaFleur on the sideline in order to give him a dope slap when he comes up with the ideas like going for it on 4th and 8? Glad you brought it up, man. Interesting to hear LaFleur asked about it today with the benefit of a day being a day removed, etc. And, he essentially said, it was a 1 possession game. I wanted to go down swinging, so to speak, rather than looking. Yes, there's 11 minutes left there, but they thought they had a play that they could score on, essentially. And man, look, for a guy who takes untold amounts of shit for not being aggressive enough, when he is aggressive, everyone kills him for it. I would have kicked it there. Corey was yelling for it on the watch party, but man, it's his boat. He's the captain. If that's how he wants to sail his vessel, man, I wouldn't have done that, but that's his job on the line there. Now, it didn't contribute to a victory, but who knows if, McManus missing a kick earlier in the game maybe influences that decision a little bit. I doubt he'd ever throw McManus under the bus like that, but yeah, man, it's a tough one. And I also found it interesting to hear Matt say, there are people, because I think he's asked, I can't remember who asked the question. Maybe it was Tom Clemens, but someone asked him, are there people in your headset saying, essentially what you're talking about, maybe not slapping you, but saying, hey, Matt, what are we doing here? He said there are voices on the line, though there's not a lot of time for conversation because you do have a play clock, though they do take a time out there. Yeah, and I just would love to know, was anyone against this idea? Was John Dunn on the line? Was, Adam Stenovich going, Matt, yo, take a breath, kick the field goal, a lot of ball game left. Or was everyone like, yeah, let's go for it, man? Was it like a frat party on the line? I want to know, like, what was said and by who. I'd love to know. But we never will. Mario, what's going on, man? Season isn't over on November 2nd. The season is over on February 8th with a Lombardi trophy. Go, Pack, go. Mario, I love the confidence. I'm sure there is a section of Packers fandom that is echoing C-3PO in Return of the Jedi when he says, I wish I had your confidence. But I'm with you, buddy. Come on now. A lot of ball game left. That's what I like to hear. Keith, how you doing, man? Is it just me, or do the Packers come out flat for the non-prime time games? And why are 25% of Love's pass attempts over the last 6 games behind the line of scrimmage? Well, you got to remember on the behind the line of scrimmage thing, which is frustrating. I get it. But some of that is exactly what I was just talking about. It's run solutions where the defense is stacking the box and they have something out in the flat for the tight end or a wide receiver or a running back where he is on a called run play, throwing it out behind the line of scrimmage for hopefully what should be a numbers advantage where they're supposed to be able to block it up. Now, sometimes it doesn't work. We saw it yesterday where Romeo Doubs gets blown up initially, almost instantly after the ball carrier gets the ball in his hands, and they lose yardage, right? But on the flip side, sometimes you get Tucker Kraft in the flat against Pittsburgh, which is a run call. Love gets to his run solution, and they score a touchdown. You know, it is frustrating, though. I understand, especially in the red zone, which is where it really drives me insane. I get it between the 20s, move the ball, I'm fine. But once you get in the red zone, the lack of, I guess, the desire to attack the end zone itself rather than continuously, this goes back to the Dallas game, continuously attacking horizontally in the red zone where things are packed in. And I understand that makes it more difficult to attack vertically, but it also means they can trigger a hell of a lot easier and get downhill to blow up these horizontal plays. So I feel you, man. I feel you. Also, man, we're like running, Golden underneath to pull coverage for Dobbs at the back of the end zone. That should be Watson, but that's neither here nor there. I know he's in and out of the lineup, so I get it. Doesn't make it any less frustrating, though. And Keith, also, as far as the Packers coming out flat for non-prime time games, unfortunately, that's not just a LaFleur thing. That seems to be somewhat in the water in Green Bay throughout multiple head coaches. Going back to Holmgren was like the last coach I never really worried about that kind of thing. And still, even then, it kind of happened at times. But yeah, man, sometimes those nooners, especially packed between 2 primetime games, which we talked about last week, can almost set your watch. They're going to come out flat. And they did. And also, I'll shout out to Carter on the website pointing out, and it's something I thought about last night, but then I forgot to post about it. But back to the curse of daylight savings time. Don't forget, the Packers had a 12-year stretch of losing the weekend of daylight savings, and then they broke that streak 2 years ago, and now they're back to losing on the weekend of daylight savings time. It's the curse. I don't know, man. Who knows? Porkmaster, what's going on, man? Need the Matt LaFleur that coached his ass off against the undefeated Cardinals while shorthanded. Not showing up 25% of the games this year is unacceptable. That is a very, very well-remembered super chat. Yeah, because I remember when they were going down to Arizona, who were undefeated at the time, and the Packers were completely decimated by injury. He did coach his ass off, and that team competed their ass off. But again, situationally, had that been a noon kickoff at Lambeau, would that have been the same? I don't know. That was a primetime game, and the whole world was against them. And he did circle the wagons and had them play their asses off. I feel you, man. It's frustrating as hell. And that's why I keep coming back to, I'm not going to be surprised if they put on a show Monday night against the Eagles. And I'm not saying they're going to beat the Eagles by multiple scores or anything, but it's going to be a hell of a game. And I think the Packers are going to give them a fucking good fucking fight. And we'll see. DK. Is Matt a C+ coach carried by A+ play design? Can't agree with your arithmetic there or your grading system. I think Matt is a good coach who gets in his way too much, his own way. But no, I wouldn't call Matt a C+ coach. I live in New York. I've watched the Jets and somewhat the Giants for decades here up close, and I can tell you, I know C plus coaching, and LaFleur is much better than that. Polyhydro Design. Thank you for the super chat. The amount of fans sitting on third down on third down. The amount of fans sit third down on third down. You're talking about Lambeau yesterday? I mean, look, of all the things that I'm going to get, in my feelings about after yesterday's game, I can't even begin to place the fans or the crowd anywhere close to the pantheon of problems. I mean, give them a reason to stand up, and they will. But when you're playing uninspired ball, you're going to get an uninspired crowd. I got little issue with whatever was going on in the stands yesterday. Andrew, what's up? We looked bored, and I hate it. On to Philly. Yeah, man, it's hard because you can't quantify it, and you can't say, well, this or that. But you're not wrong. They didn't seem to have much juice yesterday. That is for damn sure. Mark, thank you, man. Give them some mood stabilizers because this team is bipolar. Truer words never spoken. Don Vito, how are you, man? Last week, Jordan Love is elite. This week, Jordan Love is trash. This is probably my annoyance talking, but some of our fans are entitled town. Yeah, man, I said it at the start, right? He absolutely had some boneheaded moments yesterday, no question about it. But on balance, he played a very good game. He is an elite quarterback. And the fact that he's I think 3 interceptions on the entire season? And he's had, yes, a few more interceptable, turnover-worthy plays, as does every quarterback. But yeah, there's some entitlement there, especially given the fact that he's following 2 Hall of Famers and people are used to a certain level of quarterback play. I think that's always going to exist for Jordan, unfortunately, Thomas, thank you, sir. Deep breath. All right, let's see what kind of medal we got. You think youth is still a contributing factor with all the inconsistency, or are we past that? No one wants to hear it, but yeah, I think it does play a little bit of a hand. I don't think it's the overriding factor in any way, shape, or form. As Brian continuously pointed out this offseason, they've played, the guys who are young even have played a lot of ball and played a lot of ball together. But yeah, the inconsistency for a group that by both age and comparative experience in the league, still a bit remnants of that, no question about it. But overall, man, if Micah Parsons is getting called for lining up offsides, that ain't youth. And obviously that didn't happen this past game, but it has happened a couple of times this season. Everybody is contributing to this inconsistency and some of the problems, not just the younger guys. Joe, what's up, man? That 4th and 8 play has me wondering if Packers receivers are taught to work their way back to the quarterback in scramble situations. Yeah, Matt said they work on scramble drill all the time, but I have a very similar question because I saw a lot of guys running back and forth in the end zone. I didn't see a single dude working his way back to the quarterback and trying to make himself, open and available, which is a frustration because I know the play in question was designed to get them into the end zone. They're trying to go for a score there. But at some point, you got to understand, okay, that's over, and you got to get back and get in front of the sticks and help your quarterback. That was a very unfortunate moment for the wide receiver group, no doubt. Ryan, what's up? As of today, do you think Goody and Matt LaFleur receive extensions? Bad coaching decisions by Matt LaFleur, not taking a field goal on 4th and 8 with 11 minutes left in the game. Well, no one's getting fired or not extended because of one decision. I can guarantee you that. And as of today, it doesn't matter. All that matters is what happens at the end of the season. No one's making any determinations on November 3rd about whether to extend Gutekunst or LaFleur. They will look at the entire body of work, which, by the way, there are 10 games remaining. People act like there are 4 or 3 games left. There are 10 games left. Let's see how it plays out, because that's what Ed Policy will do. Don Vito. And secondly, Matt LaFleur is really good coach, like historically good record-wise. He's the reason of an incredible transition from Rodgers to Love. I'm glad you pointed that out because very few people recognize that. people, oh, he had Aaron Rodgers. Well, yeah, he had Aaron Rodgers coming off, one of the worst stretches of his career and turned him into an MVP. Rodgers himself shouted him out from the stage twice, winning MVP awards. And then, yes, to be given that and then have the entire roster overhauled into the youngest team in the NFL with a first-time starter at quarterback, it's pretty damn good work. Pretty damn good work. But it's a what have you done for me lately world, and lately there's been a lot of inconsistency. I'm not sitting here saying LaFleur is off limits or infallible or shouldn't be criticized, because that is definitely not the truth. But yes, pull back and look at the totality of his time in Green Bay. He's done a really damn good job. Soder, what's up, man? When the Packers had to have it, Love drove the team yet again. That said, it is starting to feel like the Packers need all-world QB every week to win. Well, that's because they certainly aren't getting the closing from the defense that you would like. The one time they've gotten a stop, it's because the opponent needed a touchdown in Arizona. Other than that, these teams have needed field goals and they've gotten them. But that said, if you picked up maybe a score or two earlier in the game and didn't fumble in the red zone or didn't false start or didn't hold and get pushed back 10 yards, maybe you could have a multi-score lead in the second half, and then the defense would be able to pin their ears back and close out a game. Complimentary football is a thing. Dayton Gutierrez, thank you, sir. Do you think the Packers should get an offensive coordinator like McDaniels, not this season, but next season? Not really, but, every year, every single year, Matt LaFleur is asked at the end of the season whether he would consider giving up play calling, and every year he says the same thing. If he thinks it's the best thing for the Packers and for the team, he will do it. And then he never does it. Like most offensive coaches. And I know Stefanski today talked about he's given over play calling again, by the way. But remember when McCarthy did it, that lasted what? 12 games? And then he took it back. Offensive coaches, it's their thing. It's what they're kind of bred for and with to do, It's like, yeah, I would be very surprised if LaFleur ever gave up play calling, but can't say it's impossible. Jake, what's up? Appreciate you hate the coin flip decision making. I want to say, I'm not saying I hate it. I just, it's interesting to see how people label stuff in the moment. And then when people talk about being aggressive and then they see aggressiveness and they're like, not like that. Just, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Andrew, how are you, man? For the first time ever, I get why some people wonder if Matt LaFleur is him, but we were all asking that about Love at the beginning. A lot of season left. I mean, it's a weird analogy, though, because Matt LaFleur has been there, for 7 years now. Like, nothing's at the beginning. If anything, yesterday sure felt akin to McCarthy kind of wearing thin at the end. Now, again, there are 10 games to go. Let's see what happens. Jerry says, play calling is too cute. Got to stick to the basics. Which basics? Are we talking about like the West Coast offense? Are we talking about more Shanahan stuff? Are we talking, air raid? Like lots of different ways you can approach the basics of whatever system you want. What I would love, and I know no one gives a shit what I want, but I would love to see LaFleur lean into heavy sets, heavy personnel, use 12, 2 tight end stuff, even 3 tight ends, and, just get Love on the move with boot action, give him some delineated reads. Watching the Seattle Seahawks last night, Kubiak is doing a phenomenal job giving Darnold clean, easy looks. Now, it doesn't always work, and nothing's 100%, but Love is always, going through his progressions, and there's, things available to him each and every down, but it feels like there's like this monster choice in front of him on every drop back. Instead of, okay, we're going to fake the run, you're going to boot out, and there's going to be a guy in the flat, just hit him, and away we go. Or boot out, and there's a guy in the flat that they bite on, and then there's a guy on a crosser, just hit him, and away we go. Instead of constantly in the pocket, which, by the way, defense always knows where you're going to be, And okay, that guy's covered. That guy's, oh, this guy's gotten beat. Now I got to move. And all of a sudden, I got to hit my check down. But wait, now they're triggering on him and they blow it up for a loss of 2. It just feels like the defenses are very content at this point to sit back in their cover 2 shell, take away everything deep, and then just trigger as soon as Jordan hits the underneath thing, whatever that thing is. You know, at some point, you got to change it up. Will that point be this week? I doubt it. Adam, what's going on, man? Matt draws up the perfect play more than any play caller I've seen, but his not perfect play calls are not inspiring. Need more out of Steno, maybe? Only as a sounding board and or, you know, a suggestion from the skybox of, oh, look, they're rotating here. This guy is always coming down, crashing down, etc. Maybe we can take advantage of that. We've heard of that kind of thing happening before. You know, the one that pops to mind is the end of the Jaguars game last year, and they got Reed open on an over. But man, it's really hard to say they need more from Steno without knowing what Steno is doing down in and down out, or even day in and day out in the meeting rooms, in the booth. You know, it's like I had a back and forth with somebody today. It's like people go after Steno when the offense isn't working, but no one ever, and I mean ever, praises Steno when things are going well. That just speaks to we don't know what the hell he does. We don't know what he's asked to do. We don't know what his responsibilities are. So when it's going well, it's, oh, Matt's a great play caller and things on Jordan Love's elite and blah, blah, blah. But as soon as there's struggles on offense, maybe Steno's the problem. You know, Steno was doing the exact same thing when they were balling out and scoring 40 points as he is when they scored 13 against the Panthers. But it's only ever he's only ever spoken about when they're not scoring points and it struggles on offense. And I'm not saying he's infallible either. I'm not saying like he's perfect or anything like that. I'm just saying we don't know. It is folly, absolute folly, to criticize, hell, coordinators, position coaches when we have no clue what they're doing. Literally no clue. You know, that's it. That's me. That's where I live. Ryan, how are you, man? Goody and Matt LaFleur should join Fickle and McIntosh in the unemployment line after the season. Well, Ryan, we know how you stand. We know where you are. Come back and talk to me after 10 more games. This need to fire people after a bad game is insanity. That's what bad teams do. Do you want the Packers to be a bad team? Follow Ryan's advice. What if they go on a run? Oh, sorry. Ryan said they had to fire everybody after that loss to the Panthers 10 games ago. Sorry, guys. Like, please let it play out. I'm begging you. Brady, what's going on, man? Colts had a lackluster performance yesterday as well. Not seeing anyone calling them not a Super Bowl contender. Yeah, because, you know, they're the Colts and we're Packers fans and no one cares. No one cares that the Detroit Lions lost yesterday at home as well. You know, I feel you though, man. It is kind of funny. Oh, wait, who did they lose to? Oh, the quote best team in the NFL lost to. Who was that again? Oh, that's right. The Steelers, who the Packers whooped up on just a week ago. One week. And you're all ready to fire everybody. Drives me insane. I cannot pronounce this name, so I appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. Why can't we block wide for any pitch? Always a 1v4. Yeah, mostly I would suspect because the way that teams are playing them with the too high shell and everyone underneath, and they're going to trigger the moment they see that action. They are all gunning for Jesus to get on that edge. And the Packers just don't have the talent up front when it comes to getting guys out in space, whether it's a guard or even the center, you know, especially now that Kraft is gone. You know, it's going to be really hard to pin some of these defensive ends, etc. But yeah, man, I think a lot of that is just a product of teams' eyes on the quarterback. Once they see that action, they're triggering hard. I'd also remind you that, the Bills did a phenomenal job of getting out on the edge against the Panthers again and again and again and again. So you have to think, the Packers saw that and said, okay, we can try and do some of that. And the Panthers spent all week practicing that, would be my guess, because, the Bills gashed them on the edge. Atomic Hound, what's going on, man? With 85 out, will they install a new captain? Possible. I don't know. It's a very good question. I tend to doubt it, but maybe. Brian Anderson, go Pack, go. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it, man. Cheeto, how you doing? Many reasons one could point to losing. I think one is Matt LaFleur uses iterations of the same playbook until it's figured out by the opponent. Panthers had nicely bracketed deep routes and timely pass rushed. That last part is spot on, dude. I mean, the deep stuff being bracketed, and that's to be expected when you're playing a ton of too high, right? But the way they held their kind of shell, right, and their pre-snap look, while Love would be adjusting stuff, get them into whatever protection he wanted or whatever adjustment he was going to do as far as getting the ball out or whatever, and then almost always taking it down to 1 second on the play clock, and then Jenkins snaps the ball and goes to block one of the defensive tackles 3 times. Usually it was the inside backer, just flies through the A gap because they know they haven't presented pressure, but as soon as they've set, they know they can trigger because they're not accounted for, and Jordan's not going to be able to change or do anything because the clock is already down to 0. They were excellent in that regard. They blew them up a bunch of times, and you can bet the Eagles will look at that and try to do something similar because it was clearly something they saw as far as how the Packers operate pre-snap, and they took advantage of it several times. Joe, what's up, man? 2010 Packers were 5-3 after 8 games, losses to mediocre teams. Rodgers had 9 INTs, star tight end out for the year with a knee injury. Season ended well. No doubt, you can draw some parallels, but again, it doesn't mean a whole lot. People always looking for parallels to 2010 or 96 or whatever. Just got to beat the Eagles. That is the number one goal here. But yes, you're not wrong as far as needing to let it play out, as I've been discussing and sometimes yelling about here. This is exactly what I mean. I'll never forget when they lost to Detroit and everyone wanted McCarthy fired in 2010. Didn't score in the first half. Rodgers goes down, gets hurt. Man, everyone said the season was over. All they did was go on and win the Super Bowl. And I'm not saying this team's going to do that. I'm just saying you don't know. Let it play out. Jake, what's up? Seems like we don't scheme guys open anymore. Men we. As far as what I guess you're saying is we don't scheme guys so they're screaming wide open. It's very, very hard to do most of that when teams are going to just play either cover 2 or 2-man or some variation of a too high shell. Because no matter what you do, you're scheming guys into an area where they're going to have a safety, unless you're doing a flood the zone kind of thing, and maybe you get the guy on the back end. But it's just hard to do a lot of that when you're seeing predominant too high shell looks. And that's why Matt, God bless him, that's why he wants to try and continue to run the ball, especially on early downs, to try and get them out of that. He's desperate to do that so he can get to the stuff that you're talking about. Adam, what's up, man? Not trying to blame Steno. Red zone stuff just a little less consistent since Hackett left, so it seems that might be a bit of a weakness. Pack to the bowl. The Hackett thing is always interesting. I had someone ask, they wanted Hackett back calling plays. Did everyone miss Hackett in Denver or Hackett in New York? I get they had success with Rodgers in the red zone, the gold zone, whatever, but man, Hackett, I'm not feeling that as a solution to the issues they're having, especially in the red zone. But I get the correlation and the line being drawn there. Porkmaster, what's up, man? Can't wait for that fake wide receiver screen to a go route. I've been begging for it. Dude, I've been waiting for it. They keep getting blown up trying to like do this run solution screen stuff. Just one time I want a fake and a go. And I know it's in their playbook because they've run it before. Just once. Aaron Harper, what's up, man? One game at a time, Packer fans. Hey, what a concept. I love it. I love this plan. I'm happy to be a part of it. Let's do it. All right, buddy, I got to get going. Cannot thank you enough for hanging out, talking Packers each and every day, Monday through Friday, right here when Mike Witt gets in a last-minute super chat. Hey, Nags, I know it doesn't fit the youth movement with this team, but old man Mercedes is sitting on Denver's practice squad. Thoughts? I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'll say it's unlikely. But you're not wrong, man. Knows the system. You know, physical presence certainly could help them in regards to the run game, especially now that Kraft is gone. I will be surprised, but hey, crazier shit has happened. They traded for Micah Parsons a couple months ago, and I never, ever in a million years thought that would happen. So never say never, man. All right, everybody, got to get going. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Even though I'm here ranting and raving at times, I really appreciate anybody and everybody who utilizes Cheesehead TV, who comes in here and mixes it up. We're all Packers fans. We all want the best for the team. I get it. Even though we may disagree on how they go about that. Really appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Do me a monster favor. Hit like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. And then tell your friends, tell your family. Cheesehead TV. We are devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great night. Go Pack Go.